Welcome to the NQAT Daily. Today, here with Tom, talking about Gary Neville, Marcus Rashford, Casemiro, and the controversy, if that's the right word, around their time off. How's it going, Tom?
Yeah, good, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, doing all right. Doing all right. Found myself annoyed with this when I woke up this morning and had a look. And I didn't listen to the whole podcast, the Overlap podcast, in which he said this. I just saw the 5-minute sort of segment, the main segment. So, I mean, to recap that, he seems to have questioned Marcus Rashford, in particular at Casemiro, their decision to go away over the international break. They were given 4 days off. And so Casemiro took his family to Miami and Florida to go to Disney World, and Marcus Rashford went to go training, Nike training bases, and then went to a Knicks game and so on. So what was your take on this?
Yeah, none of that was mentioned on the podcast that Marcus Rashford was going to a night training camp. And the podcast was really weird as well, because it was Gary Neville framing it as, they shouldn't be doing this. People are going to talk. People are going to talk. The media are going to be on them. The media are going to be on them. And then not quite realizing that he is literally perpetuating the problem, and he is the one talking about it, and he is the one being, the media that is the problem.
He's got a massive platform. I mean, not this guy, but the other left, I'm sure, is doing really good numbers. So
massive, right? I feel like almost everyone I speak to listens to it or have listened to it, and there was a viral clip from today's episode, which is very, very funny. He's gone wild, but that show does numbers. And Gary Neville is a huge platform just in himself. Also, he's a former player, former captain. You have a responsibility, and the way that you're talking is I'm apart from the media, but the media are going to latch onto this. And he was the only person also on that podcast who kept going on about it, and everyone else is kind of disagree. Even Roy Keane, who has very old school principles, was it's kind of fine. It's you need to think about the mental side of the game rather than just the physical side, and they maybe need a rest. And when Roy Keane is that guy in that conversation, but Gary Neville, because everyone else just disagreed, just kept going on, trying to
double down
and reinforce his opinion. So it was very odd, and I almost disagree with him entirely. I couldn't kind of understand it, but his points and his arguments were just falling flat for me.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what the points and the arguments are, and then maybe have a conversation about Neville more generally. And because it always reminds me of comedians who get a $20 million Netflix deal and do a whole show about how they've been cancelled. I'd like to be cancelled too. If someone would like me to give me $20 million to be cancelled, but it's good cancelling. So it all feels very meta. In terms of the actual point, I don't get it, honestly. Firstly, he was just wrong, it seems. I don't think Marcus Rashford went to Nike HQ in Oregon, so it's just outside of Portland. Wayne Rooney went there years ago to do some training and get fit, and there was a whole big thing about that. And even if it was, it's a 10-hour flight, not a 12-hour flight. I know, I live there. And in fact, 9 going the other way. And it was 5 to New York on a private jet, which I'm sure that Marcus Rashford has done. He's not flying in cattle class on Ryanair, is he? He's staying in a nice hotel, doing some training at the same time. And so I find that the whole take around that very weird, and it's not far off sort of Goldbridge-esque. He's just putting out PR. He's done a video of himself training. That's PR. He's gone and had a night out of the Knicks game after he's done the training. That's terrible. I find this whole thing, this idea that everything a footballer does must be super scrutinized, and the only acceptable life that they can have is you go to training, you do your training sessions, then you go home and you don't do any media at all, because that's all bad. Unless it's a sit down with Gary Neville and Sky, then that's good.
I find it so odd that he was going after him like this, and I think he tried to in the conversation tried to put it more on Casemiro than Rashford. I think
Because he
because he
took his family
potentially,
to Disney World.
yeah, I think it's I guess because maybe like he realized that there has been piles on Rashford, and therefore he's trying to distance. But the way he just kept going on and on and on about it, I don't know how long the pod it was, but it felt like a long time, especially when he was kind of like old man yelling at cloud, and all the other people around him were just like, "Yeah, leave it, mate." Like, and you've got like proper football men now, like old like Scholes. He's never kind of known for his like he has a certain way about him. The same with Roy Keane has a certain way about him. Ian Wright's, I guess, a bit more different, and I think Jill Scott's quite well, not a football man, but a football woman in her views. She has kind of old school views as well. But like, so for Gary Neville to be so wide, it just felt, like you say, it felt like Goldbridge. And I think because he was criticised for it by others, he just kept doubling down and doubling down. So I don't think he has an agenda here, but it just kind of came across like he did, because he just kept going and going for
Yeah.
no apparent reason. And also not, and clearly not in ha- in possession of all the facts either. Like it was just really odd.
It comes to something when Ian Wright, who annoyed me massively as a player, maybe because he kept scoring against us, he's now the sensible pundit and always has like reasonable takes and arguments on stuff. And he actually seems to be, maybe because his son was involved in football more recently, but seems to have a slightly more relaxed view of what it is to be a modern footballer. He's very good on Righty's House as well with the Stadio guys. So.
Yeah, I kind of wonder as well. Like every time I hear Ian Wright, I always wonder how much influence like working with someone like Musa has had on him. Like Musa's a very heart-focused person. Like he speaks a lot from the heart. He's very empathic. He's very studious, obviously, very knowledgeable about the game. And I wonder if, like, especially them working so closely together, I wonder if how much that would have an impact on you, I guess, because it's bound to if you're hosting a show with someone. And Musa is so much different to Ian Wright, and I feel like he has kind of rubbed off on him in a lot of respects.
But which way do you think it goes? Because one of the sorry, I was just thinking more generally because about the influence of your types of media, right? So Wright seems to be the thinking man's pundit now. It's not where I would have put him during his career necessarily, but I do think he thinks about the game, and obviously he's a big booster of the women's game as well.
Yeah,
Ian Wright, and then but more generally gets me thinking about what is the point of all this professional media, right? And I think you can put the overlap in that kind of professional class too. They have a studio, there's a production quality to it, there's a fair bit of money behind it, and all of that. I mean, is it that we're so short-term focused and our attention spans are so short that actually the whole point of a longer podcast is to get clips in order to generate other people talking about it like us, and we're part of the cycle in doing this daily show on it. And really it is to get that 1 minute, 2 minute clip that you can share around on socials, and that's more important than the whole media. I mean, and it kind of the second thought I have about that is that do our pundits then sort of mentally train? I don't mean like producers are saying say something controversial, but more like they are kind of trained to have these tight takes which can be clipped for social media. Has it got to that point, or is it just that the social media people are so good at finding the controversial take in any kind of 60 minutes, someone's going to say something, you go, okay, I'm going to find that piece.
Yeah, I guess it's going to be a bit of both, isn't it? But I think the longer that this has become a thing, the more in the head it's definitely going to be of the people on the show. Like, I listened to the Bill Simmons podcast, if anyone listening listens to that, but he literally has parts of his show where he tells his producers to turn on the TikTok camera, so that he can talk like that. He can have his hot take clipped for TikTok. And that's the only instance I've ever heard that actually happen. But like, that is actually a thing where this goes on. And yeah, I'm sure that this is part of their psyche. Maybe it's subconscious, maybe it's conscious at times, but like they are all so trained. And I feel like Paul Scholes, for example, when he first kind of came on, he was very, I don't really want to be here, but he's even kind of grown to up. Like, I really like that product. Don't get me wrong, I'm not calling here to slate the overlap or stick football. I literally listened to it like the first thing today I did today, where really was listen to the whole show. I don't particularly agree with Gary Neville almost most of the time these days.
Yeah, I find him quite hard.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Paul Scholes was brilliant on the show today, like really funny, like really dry. Feels like he's kind of found himself a little bit in that environment. And then Roy Keane's always great value. Ian Wright's good, but
Roy Keane's now, he understands that he's a parody of himself, though, right?
Yeah,
he does understand that.
He definitely feels like the guy who knows. He knows when to make a joke, and therefore I guess that is also the same thing as knows when this is going to be clipped. Because if once he's seen the viral clip today, like you can see him smiling before he says it because he knows he's got like a great joke coming up, and yeah, that may be like. I think that is natural, but it's also, I guess, it's great for the producer as well to get out the viral clip.
Yeah, I mean, Neville, I think he was the new fresh thing when he started on Sky Sports. What, 15 years ago now? I can't remember. It probably is, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's about my age, I think Neville is around about. So after his retirement, and Monday Night Football was like something brand new, really deeper analysis. Tactical analysis. Now it's been overtaken by like social media analysts who bring out these giant threads on games and stuff like that. And Neville seems to have retrenched into being more pundity, more hot takes than deep analysis. And I do wonder whether he's got so many things going on in his life, business, media, and stuff like that. He might not actually be that in touch with what's happening on the ground in football these days. I mean, obviously he watches a lot of football because he's part owner of a club and he also is still on Sky. But I find him a little grating. Obviously, fantastic player, Manchester United legend, not trying to have a go at Neville for that at all. But he's a hard listen as a United fan, because and this is not an original take, either on this show or anywhere else, he does like take his neutrality to an extreme a little bit. And that's a little bit grating. And plus he's become more pundity over time.
Yeah, I find him, I feel a urge to want to listen to him despite disagreeing with a lot of what he says. And also I find him quite basic. I think the more I've listened to like the overlap, the more I've realized like how much of a basic guy he is. But like, believes himself not to be. Like sometimes when he just kind of says about films or when he talks about like food or music and stuff, and like he's the way he kind of like professes to be like this absolute oracle when he's kind of talking like really basic stuff. It kind of is like, okay, you really
I love it when pundits or footballers start talking about something else in the world of culture or politics, but like a pundit. I mean, it's a big thread going through the Football Cliches podcast, of course. The best one of that ilk was Højbjerg talking about, I think it was Højbjerg, talking about how he likes his eggs. And he just talks about them like, and at one point he says, no disrespect to eggs, but you know the thing, right? But yes.
It never was exactly
absolutely,
the same way. Like it's that football speak that they just kind of always stay in. But I think you're completely right. And I definitely feel this with Gary Neville as well. Like when he first came onto the scene, like he was seen as the poster boy for football and analysis. Whereas now, like you said, I think because of the businesses and stuff, he definitely nowhere near has the same kind of in touchness. You sometimes see it with NFL commentators as well. When Tony Roman first left the game, for example, he was really, really on it with the commentary. He really, really knew the routes that where people were going to run. He knew the plays that were going to come up next. And Gary Neville felt like that when he left football, whereas now he kind of feels detached. And I don't particularly like Jamie Carragher at all, but I think Jamie Carragher's is at a different level in terms of actually analysing the game, because I think Carragher he definitely has an appreciation of the history of the game. He definitely has an appreciation of the tactics of the game and the progression with that. And when I hear this is probably going to go down like a lead balloon because we're on a United podcast and we're talking about a Liverpool legend here. But when he does talk about the game, you can tell he analyzes it compared to, especially on that podcast where it's kind of about jokey laughs. I think it's why I enjoy listening to it so much because it's just easy listening. It's not much deepness to it. Whereas Carragher, I think, has an extra level of depth, which Gary Neville used to have, but just doesn't anymore. And especially, like you say, when you compare the analysis of him, Gary Neville, to what we have now from so many people, so many outlets, so many just Twitter people or Blue Sky people, like it's just quite basic in comparison. Whereas I think Carragher has a little bit more depth, but still nowhere near as much as what I guess most people online have these days. Not most people, but a lot.
It's kind of general thought and bugbear of mine that the best jobs in football punditry or analysis and commentary, especially in broadcast channels that actually have the rights to the games, go to ex-players, right? Oh, I mean, TNT Sports or BT Sport have a few journos on there for some of the games. But most of the time it's ex-ballers, and there's so few of them that actually provide what they should be doing. If they are not there to give the inside track on the things that you would not understand as a fan, right? How training happens, how tactics are approached, what it is like in certain situations. If they're not there to give that extra layer of analysis more than we as fucking armchair pundit fans can do, then what's the point? I'd rather have a button that muted them. But there's a certain role in the games and the comms that is just there to keep you company, right? I think it's just it's like you're sitting with someone else at a pub or in the stadium and having a chat with someone. Oh, that was good. Or these are like fine, right? I can cope with that, but if it's really dumb, basic, simplistic takes by a dumb baller, and I'm not saying that Neville is a dumb baller at all, but just generally, I just don't see the value in it at all. Because they're an ex-player, if they're not going to give that ex-player edge, then I don't think they're not earned that spot. There's so many other people that have better depth of knowledge and could provide that, but they're not an ex-baller, so they don't get those roles.
Yeah, and I think the overlap and Stick to Football do a good job of that. Like, they're not like Talk Sport, for example, where they have like just idiots on like Jamie O'Hara or Gabby Agbonlor or people like Troy Deeney and all that nonsense. I think, especially like Roy Keane, I think Roy Keane gives a very, very specific take on football, and it sometimes resonates with me, sometimes doesn't. Sometimes he goes way overboard with the mental side, but sometimes he gets the mental side completely spot on. I think that whole show does just lean into the mental side of the game so much. It's so much kind of dependent on they didn't work hard enough, or they didn't try hard enough, or they're not cohesive as a team, and there's so much insight, I guess, that does come from that, because like the mentality of the United when those players were at United under Fergie is really interesting, and you can see like where that winning mentality came from. But I guess sometimes it gets lost in like the basicness of the point, and also the point that I want to be a bit of a pundit man, or I kind of
Well, you don't find, I don't know, a segment and a masterclass on the coach's voice going viral, right? Because it's too deep and in the weeds for it to be broad enough to go viral. But it's better analysis than you'll ever get on one of these broader shows. So, and like, it's all got to roll, right? We're a fan channel. We'll get 1,500 views on this. It's not very big. We'll get more on our podcast. Still, we're niche fan channel. We serve a role. I don't think either of us are getting invited on Sky Sports to do the co-coms anytime soon. But hey, Sky, if you need someone, give us a shout. We'll do it. We'll see if we're talking out of our arse when we're criticising people for doing it, or whether we come up with basic takes as well. Probably would.
coverage.
Probably would. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think Rashford and Casemiro did anything wrong. That became a commentary on punditry more generally, didn't it? But I just don't see it. 5 hours on a private jet, it's not hard. That's relaxing. If you're having to get to the Manchester airport and go through all the queues to get on a economy basic flight with your 10 pounds of carry-on baggage and you're crammed in with your knees up to your eyeballs like I am because I'm quite tall, and some absolute fucking cunt who should be publicly executed puts their chair all the way back for the whole 8-hour flight, then I'd go, yeah, that's not the best environment for an elite sports person, but yeah.
Not quite
the same. No. By the way, I'm not in favour of the death penalty, except for people who recline their chairs on planes. It's a crime.
Also,
it should be a crime.
Sometimes they do it like during dinner, and like you can really, Jesus. Oh, we dinner down me now. Cheers, mate.
I'd like a eject button. Yeah, you're out. Gone. Right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone. Tell your friends and your enemies. You can find me at NQAT on all platforms: Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, YouTube, where you're watching this, patreon.com if you want to back our shows. Have I missed anything out? TikTok as well.
Nice.
I send some clips there when I get around to it. Tom, you are on Blue Sky now, I see.
Yeah, Tom Waterman on Blue Sky. I'm enjoying it so far. I think it's been massively overhyped, but I'm enjoying the new experience. And
yeah,
I'm trying not to go on it as much as I can, because I went on there for about 20 minutes yesterday and I found myself getting enraged. Whereas Blue Sky's not quite like that, and there's a lot of Reds on there and a lot of United fans, which is really good.
There was a big migration over. It feels like Twitter circa 2012 or something like that. Yeah, much nicer. Plus, I do like their feature where you can subscribe to and then block an entire list of people. So there are people doing lists of wrong-uns where you can just block them all. Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah.
Right, everyone. Bye now. Thanks a lot.